Part 2.
Yeah.
Here it is, guys. We already saw Realms Fall. Now we get to see Steel and Silver. I think kind of the flagship set here, because obviously the Witcher himself is here, Geralt. And I'll have to look into it, but for some reason the actual box art looks a lot better. I for some reason remember the art they had of Geralt not looking the best, but obviously this looks gorgeous. And then we have Ciri here, and don't know too much about her, but obviously she has that unicorn as a sidekick. And the one I am absolutely most excited for here is the Leshen. I was at least told by someone who loves The Witcher that this is kind of a character you see in all the games. It's not one specific Leshen, but a monster that you hunt in the Witcher games. But yeah, let's get right into it. Once again, we are seeing here that this is a CD Projekt Red logo here that was first for the Witcher sets. Once again, I'm guessing that is the company that holds the Witcher titles and the copyrights and such. But we can take a look at the side of the box here. We have Geralt's eyes, kind of looks like cat eyes with that yellow glow. And then on this side here we have the Leshen and his two wolves. Once again, very, very excited with that skull for a face there. Very cool. Next here we have another Witcher side here for Geralt. And then we have the monster reflected in the blade. A very cool piece of art. And then lastly here we have Ciri. Just looks like she's always in a trance, just always overwhelmed by magic. But yeah, let's get into it and let's check these out. I'm very excited to see how all these guys play. Obviously nothing on the inside of the box here. So first we have this leaflet here of our two sets. We already saw the Realms Fall video. You can check that out if you'd like. Out of those three, I definitely liked Yennefer and Triss here. And I thought I was going to like Aerodin the most, but actually these two he was in third place for me. But now we will see here. My prediction is I'm going to like the Leshen most, maybe Ciri second, and then Geralt last, surprisingly. But we'll see how that goes. On the inside here, we have all of the old sets. It's great to see slings and arrows here. Very fun. We're getting so many sets for this game. Very excited. And lastly, also our Tales to Amaze. Excited to see if we ever have the TMNT sets on here. But yeah, we can move on from that. We now have our Steel and Silver set rules here. And it looks like we have that two sword icon. I believe that was also in the front of the box. But we had kind of a cool Aerodin symbol for the other set. But yeah, let's take a look real fast into here. Okay, here we go. One-way pass. Okay, so they are bringing that back. I believe we saw that in Volume 2 and maybe a couple other maps if I'm not remembering right. It also says large fighters can move through both directions on one-way arrows. There are no large fighter in the set. Okay, so interesting. Obviously, we know Aerodin's not a large fighter, even though I believe he is quite tall in this set. But that's cool that they can move both ways, because obviously they're occupying both spaces. I believe I did know that, but I guess I rarely play with the one-sided arrow map, so definitely a good refresher. Then continuing on in here, we can check out everything from here. We have our ongoing schemes. If you've not seen the last video, this is a new thing that they're bringing out with this set, with this yellow text that you'll see there where you play it, and then it'll stay not in your discard pile, but next to your hero card, wherever you want on the table, and you'll get that effect until you discard it. And one thing I did point out in this section here is that you can potentially, if you play a second ongoing effect, you discard the first one. So all of them only had one ongoing effect, but possibly one of these characters will have two different ongoing effects. So one will replace the other. You can't have both at the same time. But yeah, so Geralt of Rivia here with Always Prepared. We have Ciri with Source. And then Ancient Leshen with Heart of the Forest. Obviously, I'm going to read through this in a little bit, and then when we get into each specific character, but this is the one that I already had spoiled for me with getting able to choose your weapon, your armor, and your potions for depending on which fighter you're going to be going against, where Geralt is always prepared for whatever monster or beast he's going to be taking down. But I'm excited to see Dandelion. I don't know too much about him. And then obviously we have our core rules here. We kind of skimmed through it when we looked at the other ones, but I like how, since it's the core set, there's multiple different sets in here. So we saw Battle of Legends Volume 1 here, but then here's Volume 2. Then we also have Cobble and Fog there with Volume 1 and 2 there. And it looks to be the exact same as the other core rules, and I love that now we can see with Robin Hood versus Beowulf. And one thing they did in the earlier sets, which I really, really liked, is they always had their weapons in this kind of just white glow. Very cool. They stopped doing that with the new sets, but definitely something I would like to see come back if they can. Definitely was a fun detail on the covers. But yeah, okay, so core rules are pretty much the same there. And then looking into our health dials here, we have Geralt of Rivia and Dandelion. I was surprised they went with this white theme for Geralt. I was kind of thinking maybe more of like the yellow with his cat eyes, or more like a gray or silver, but I kind of like the white. And then we have, looks like I believe a lute is what that's called, or whatever type of instrument. Don't quote me on that one. And then we have Ancient Leshen. This is awesome, the full moon there. And okay, a little bit of a spoilers. I was kind of slightly looking for this, but we do have a new 0 icon there with that bird flying overhead for the Leshen. Everybody else looks to have just regular 0s. And then we have Ciri here, and then we also have
a Wari Quacks.
Yes, that was my natural voice. Then looks like the backs are pretty plain. Yeah, so it's white on the front, but purple on the back. So kind of boring. One thing I think that's my only gripe with the set so far is that the backs of the dials are super boring. I mean, I would even take kind of a mirror image over just a plain back on the health dials, but hey, that's me nitpicking. And then next here we can look into the map. The other one we had the 2 ships, so I'm excited to see what we have here. And I forgot to kind of mention it. We didn't actually look at the back of the box, I'm now remembering. But they brought back double-sided boards. And hey, I don't know if we've ever seen that before. That is a 4-zone space. And there's 2 of them right next to each other. I actually can't recall if we've seen a 4-zone space before. For some reason, like, there's almost checkerboard pattern. It looks very fresh. But looks like we have a lot of one-way directions. Looks like there's like kind of a castle wall around. You're jumping back into the middle there. Looks like a bunch of training dummies. And this whole castle is destroyed. Oh, I like how it's kind of cupping that space there. Oh, okay, a split path. I also don't know if we've ever had that before. That is very cool. I'm definitely loving, and that's interesting. Okay, so right up here, there's not a lot of ways to get up here, only one there and then over there. So this whole section here is going to be hard to get up into. It looks like also there. So very cool. I'm excited to see how that plays. And this one was called Kaer Morhen, potentially, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then back here we have another side, so more of the foresty area, I'm guessing, where the Leshen would come from. And then, okay, cool. Another thing that's standing out to me here is this is like, the space is the only one in its zone. I don't know if we've seen anything like that before. And it kind of looks like the top of like a tree stump. So very interesting. It's kind of a way to hide from ranged fighters where they have to come into melee range. I do like that there's lots of ways to get to the space, so you can't like kind of box yourself in and hide from people. But very cool. And it's also very interesting that there's these spaces here are in the same range, but the ones in the middle are not. So even though these seem super close, or these seem super close, they're not in the same zone. A very interesting shakeup coming from the Witcher set here. They do not disappoint. Then we can go in and take a look at what comes in the set here. We have Geralt here. I believe he's also called the White Wolf, which I guess makes sense why he has all the white colors. And then, yeah, we can see in his hand here, he does have that symbol. Once again, I have not played the games or read the books or seen the movie, or I guess TV shows what it is. But I have seen that symbol in his hand before, so very cool detail there. We have our little plastic rivets, and then we can take a look at the card back real fast. And I like that they're already showing that he is going to be geared up. Very cool. We have always prepared there. And yeah, that pattern we're seeing in the background was on his health dial, so I guess I do like that. And then we have Ciri here, and it does look like, yes, her sword is just ever so slightly bent. I might end up fixing that, but it doesn't look like it's going to bother me too much. I do like this light blue color, very fun color to have. And then we have, looks like dandelion there. We have the unicorn, and then both wolves. And okay, yeah, so it looks like the wolves are the exact same. Hey, can't fault them for not adding every little tiny detail, but at least with the Red Riders from the other set, we did get different art for every single token. And then here is the back for Ciri and her horse there. Very cool. I like the lightning for the border. Very nice. And then next here we can take a look at our Leshen here. Wow, this did not disappoint. I love this. Let me bring out, how about Geralt here? And we can just see what the height difference is. Very cool. And I believe I have the T-Rex nearby. And we can see what those guys look like together. So obviously not going to be comparable to the T-Rex, but hey, definitely stands a lot taller than most fighters against the T-Rex there. Very cool. Let's take a quick look at his card back. Put those guys back. And yes, did not disappoint. Oh, I love all the wolf eyes in the background, once again with these kind of twigs coming from the border. Definitely very gorgeous art with this set. And here we have a move 1 fighter. I've tried to keep myself super blind when it comes to this set, so there's a few things I do know from spoilers, but a lot of stuff I don't know, so we're going to be kind of going in this together. Very cool. And one thing I do want to quickly do, because I forgot to, I'm going to take all of these guys out so we can take a quick look at the back of the box as well as the side, because I forgot to take a look at those. We have some more art from Geralt. One thing I will say is that I don't know what it is, but I feel like all the Geralt art, even though it is gorgeous, I feel like every single one looks like a different person. Like they can't quite keep them all sane, and like the more I stare at this one, his hand looks nice and tiny. But once again, that's just me throwing out some small complaints here and there. But Leshen, absolutely gorgeous. That art is so cool. Next here we have another Geralt drinking a potion with like these, I don't know, demon creatures coming after him. Very, very cool. And then last here we have Ciri, kind of doing her different slashes. Yeah, she looks like she's an attitude girl. I mean, look at her. And then looking at the back of the box here. Okay, yeah, so we could have seen how big he was if we would have looked this up a little bit earlier. Of course, all of our sidekicks there, we do know that the wolves are the same art. And then keep looking around. Once again, showing our double-sided board. I did happen to see a picture of the back of the box, and that's how I saw this. Maps are double-sided, so definitely a spoiler, but hey, I'm not complaining. I love that we have double-sided maps again. Very, very cool. Okay, so yeah, let's crack into it. We can go to each character individually and check out their decks. Okay, so we all knew I had to start with the Ancient Leshen. I'm very, very excited about this one specifically. I think it hits all the right notes for me. So starting off, we can take a closer look at this miniature here. And I said, just absolutely gorgeous details to all the stuff hanging around his belt there. Just the individual branches coming through his hands, the skull laying on top there. We can even see the teeth as they poke through his like a little bit of a tunic here in the back, and all the ropes going around. I mean, just a gorgeous miniature. And I do want to once again bring out another fighter here so you can just see that he is quite a bit taller. Not anything too crazy like I was hoping, but definitely big. And we can see with a different fighter from a different set here, even the tip of Beowulf's sword here doesn't reach the height of the Leshen. But yeah, next we have here is the wolf tokens. We can take a quick look at these guys. And I'm loving this kind of foresty green, and I love the artwork style here. Almost kind of scratchy, like penmanship a little bit. And then lastly here, we can take a look at the health tile. I do want to point out that it does have a special 0, so the little bird symbol there whenever the Leshen dies. And then we have the skull with the full moon in the background. And then once again, slightly complaining here is that the back is kind of boring. I wish it was at least the same green color instead of black. It almost feels like it doesn't match. But that's just me throwing out my little bit of gripes there. But yeah, let's move right into the deck here, starting with the Ancient Leshen here. A ranged fighter with 13 health, and then he has the wolves that are melee with 2 of them to go with him. And then we have a move of 1 for the fighter. His ability here is Heart of the Forest. Add +3 to the value of the Leshen's attacks if it already attacked this turn. Your wolves have a move of 3, or a move value of 3. Very, very cool. Is there a scratch on my card? It looks like there is a scratch on my card, or at least an indentation. But okay, cool. Yeah, so the wolves, I guess that's cool that they're nice and fast, but the big guy is not nice and slow, but he is on the slower side. But he hits like crazy. Very, very cool. I mean, obviously we'll have to see how he utilizes this. I can't even wait. Let's get right into the deck here and check out the Leshen. I hope he lives up to my expectation of him being my favorite of all 6 Witcher fighters here. And here is the card back one more time with the full moon, that skull and antlers, and all the wolves behind. Let's go into it. Starting here with the Leshen's attack cards, attack of 4. Oh, wow, this is cool with all his hands going into the roots here. Attack of 4 with 3 boost 3 copies, and this is Primeval Slam. After combat, summon a wolf in the Leshen zone, then move each wolf up to 3 spaces. Okay, cool. So if he's getting on attack, remember he does have to be. I guess he doesn't have to be. You know. Wipe that sentence out of the board. For some reason, I keep thinking that he's melee, but no, this guy is ranged. Okay, so he can kind of go through under the ground, reach you from a distance, and then get more wolves and have all the wolves come and surround you for another attack. And potentially, these could be 7s if this is the second attack of the turn, which is very scary that he's a ranged fighter. I feel like that would vibe more with a melee fighter. I'm definitely excited to try this guy out and see if he is as scary as I think he is. But next here we have a Leshen attack of 5. That could potentially be an 8 there with 1 boost 2 copies, and this is Flock of Birds. After combat, you may place the Leshen in any space. Okay, that's definitely scary that he can go anywhere, because he could attack you and reposition to be in a better position and then attack you again. Very, very cool. Next here we go into our defense cards here for the Leshen. This is a defense of 5, 2 boost 3 copies, and this is Primeval Guardian. During combat, your opponent discards the top card of their deck, add its boost value to their card's value. After combat, move each wolf 3 spaces. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of movement for these wolves. I'm excited to see what cards they get to attack with here. But very cool that he's I mean, that's interesting that you added to their cards value. So you are you're milling their deck by 1 card, but you're getting them to attack a little bit harder. But, you know, I think with a 5, we'll still probably be able to stay on the ground there. But next here is our scheme cards for the Leshen with 3 boost 2 copies. And this is Vanish into Murder. Murder is a flock of crows, if you didn't know. And this is deal 1 damage to each opposing fighter in the Leshen zone, and remove the Leshen from the board. At the start of your next turn, place the Leshen in any space, then draw 1 card. Okay, that is pretty cool. So he's getting a bunch of damage, stopping your opponent from going after him. And then the next turn, not only do you get to put him in any space, but you get to draw another card. Definitely like that. I mean, a better Vanish than the Invisible Man, personally, there. And then next here, we're getting into our ongoing card, and this is Leshen. We got to see a little Wolfie there. And this is Strength of the Pack. This is 1 boost 3 copies, and this is Summon a Wolf in the Leshen zone. And one thing I do want to note is that even though we only have 2 wolves, it seems like we have a lot of movement with these wolves, and we get to bring them back quite a bit. So his ongoing effect here is at the start of your turn, the Leshen recovers 1 health. Okay, so passive healing. Discard this card at the end of your turn if there are no wolves in the Leshen zone. And it seems like it's going to be pretty easy to get those wolves to stay in your zone, because even if your opponent's moving in on their turn, you have quite a few cards that'll move a wolf back into the Leshen zone. So that makes sense why he has only 13 health, because he's going to be healing quite a bit. And now we get to see what the wolves do here with the attack of 1 for the wolf with 1 boost 3 copies. And this is Disturbing Howls. After combat, move the opposing fighter up to 2 spaces, gain 1 action. Okay, interesting. So potentially moving them closer to the Leshen or away from him, or maybe into a way to be surrounded. I like the 1 attack with the gain action. So you're kind of just pinging at him a little bit and going right back. And then next here we have for the wolves a 2 versatile with 2 boost 3 copies, and this is Herring Strike. During combat, add +2 to this card's value for each of your fighters adjacent to the opposing fighter. Okay, so you only have 3 fighters, so potentially, I mean, it says all of your fighters, not other fighters, so potentially a +6, so this could be 8. And this is for the wolves, so Leshen's not going to get those +3 attack, but a very cool card there. Now moving into our any cards here, very cool art, wow. Definitely, the Leshen is scary. He's lurking in the woods there. This is a 2 attack for any with 2 boost 3 copies, and this is Nature Abounds. After combat, draw 1 card for each of your fighters adjacent to the opposing fighter. So yeah, so with all that movement we're seeing with the wolves, it seems like you're going to be wanting to be surrounding the opponent at all times and not letting him move. I really like how this deck is coming out so far. Next here is a 4 attack for any with 2 boost 2 copies, and this is Command the Forest. After combat, if you won the combat, your opponent discards 1 card. And with a 4, it seems like you might be able to do that quite a few times there. So a couple of mills there. I mean, obviously 1 is beneficial with those 3, but 2 more mills. I'm really liking this deck so far. And wow, this art is awesome. I love this. Next here is a 3 versatile for any with 1 boost 3 copies. This is Wily Fighting. After combat, deal 1 damage to each opposing fighter adjacent to your fighter, a card that we are all very familiar with. And then next here is a 4 versatile for any with 3 boost 3 copies, and this is Planted Feet. After combat, if your fighter hasn't left their space this turn, draw 1 card. Okay, and with a ranged fighter, that can definitely be something that you can do at the beginning of your turn. Definitely like that. Okay, I mean, nothing like too crazy. Definitely feels a little bit more straightforward than some of the decks we have seen from the other set, but it definitely lives up. I mean, obviously we will see what the other decks look like, but I don't know if I can say he's my favorite of the 6. I definitely like how straightforward he is, and everything about him feels very thematic and very cool. But yeah, let's move into our next fighter. Okay, so next up is the title character, the Witcher himself, Geralt of Rivia. We can take another closer look at this miniature here. They absolutely did fantastic. I'm a little bit worried that hook is going to break off as, you know, gameplay works, because I am slightly rough with my fighters because I like to take them traveling a lot. So we'll see how long that little hook thing lasts. And then next here we have his sidekick. This is Dandelion himself, same on both sides. And one thing I do want to say, I don't know if it's because of the text on the bottom, but all of the Witcher ones seem to be like slightly pushed up, like this, like instead of this being centered, it's slightly up. It's like centered with the text. I believe Marvel did that same thing. Once again, slight gripe, but I do have to point that out because that's something I'd be thinking about. Then we can look at his health dial. We do not have to look at the 0 because we already know that it does not have a fun symbol. But yeah, I like the colors on the front, but I don't like is that they did this kind of purpley color on the back. It kind of does slightly match in the inside there, but I wish the white was back, or the back was white and had that same kind of design on the back. And then there is Dandelion and his instrument. He also does not have a fancy 0. We can see the same is that purple on the back health dial. We're going to move on because once again, I'm just going to be griping about it. But if we go right into his hero card here, we can see that Geralt of Rivia here is a melee fighter with 16 health, and Dandelion is ranged with 5 health. And then they both have a move of 2. And there's that same purple that we saw in the back of the health dials there. But his ability is going to be always prepared. At the start of the game, choose your gear, select a potion, armor, and sword, and shuffle 2 copies of each into your deck. Okay, so we can kind of skip the main deck just for now. We can actually look at the gear. So each of them are going to be 2 copies of each. You have 1 of each to choose from. So you'll choose an attack card, you'll choose a defense card, and then you will choose one of the 2 ongoing effects. And then something that I did mention earlier, the fact that there could be possibly 2 ongoing effects. It does look, we have Blizzard and then the 20 Owl. Hopefully I said that right. But you will not be using at the same time, because whichever gear you do not pick is going to be out of the game, back in the box. You will not see it during this match. So it's not like one will be in play and the other one will replace it. It'll just be the same one replacing the same one. But just, this is a small thing to note. So we can quickly go through this before we look in the deck. And one thing I do want to point out with the deck is I noticed that Geralt here has all versatile cards, a few schemes, and I believe 1 attack card. Your other cards are going to be coming from the gear. And then Dandelion can't use like any of this deck. There's, I believe, like 5 Dandelion cards. So I have not read them, but as I was organizing them, I noticed there's no any cards in this deck. So we do need to keep that in mind when we're picking our gear. But once again, one thing I do like about the gear here is that you get to see who your opponent is whenever you decide which gear to choose, because you're preparing for the correct battle to take down that specific fighter. So let's get right into it with our 2 options here for the attack cards. The first one here for Geralt is a 4 attack, 3 boost, 2 copies, and this is Gear, Sword of Steel. After combat, gain 1 action. If the opposing fighter has 8 or more health, gain 2 actions instead. So potentially a good one to do against high health or good healing fighters. And then the other option here is Sword of Silver, also a 4 attack with 3 boost and 2 copies. So yep, they all share the same values there. And this one is immediately, if your opponent's card has a printed value of 4 or more, ignore its value. Okay, so 1 to choose if they're high health fighter, and 1 to choose if they're high attack, like a high printed value attack. Very cool. There's a couple of fighters I can think of for each of those. Next here is our defense cards for Geralt. 3 defense, 3 boost, 2 copies. And this is Gear. This is the Wolf Medallion. Immediately cancel all effects on your opponent's card. During combat, if the opposing fighter is not adjacent to Geralt, ignore the value of your opponent's card. Okay, I really like that. One thing I always have to deal with new players is like, why would I ever choose a melee fighter? The ranged always seems better, and I love that this is just a straight up counter. Like, hey, if you're gonna be hiding from me, then all of your stuff is your card's canceled, and now your value is gone. Your entire attack is wasted. And then it looks like the values are different for the next ones here, but the other option we have for our defense cards here for Geralt is a 2 defense, 3 boost, 2 copies, and this is Gear, Armor of the Forgotten Wolf. During combat, add +1 to this card's value for each fighter adjacent to Geralt after combat and the turn. So I like that they're, once again, using this end turn effect. I believe we saw it in either 1 or 2 decks from the other set, but we're seeing end turn again here. So very nice. I think I definitely like the Wolf Medallion better than the Armor of the Forgotten Wolf. But once again, you get to choose at the beginning of the game. So depending on who you're fighting against and your knowledge of their deck, you can choose which one you think will be stronger. And then next, you're going into our schemes that are also our ongoing effects here. This is a scheme for Geralt, 3 boost, 2 copies, and this is Gear, Blizzard. Draw 1 card, move Geralt up to 3 spaces. Ongoing, opponents can't gain actions. Discard this card at the end of your turn if you didn't attack. Okay, so Bruce Lee, that is going to suck for you, and there's quite a few fighters that action gain is very, very important. So I like that. As long as you at least get that 1 punch in, which might be slightly more difficult with that melee fighter, but a very cool scheme there. I like that ongoing effect. Next here for Geralt is another 3 boost, 2 copy scheme. And this is Gear, 20 Owl. Draw 2 cards, gain 1 action. Ongoing, if an opponent would cause you to discard a card from your hand, you may choose to ignore it. Discard this card at the end of your turn if you didn't attack. Okay, so both of these are all about keeping attack up to use these potions. Maybe that's something that happens with Geralt in the game. Like it's like only during combat that he gets these effects. But definitely very cool. Okay, so I mean, I guess there are a few fighters that are about like making your opponent discard, but I feel like this one is not as good in situations as this one is. I mean, stopping your opponent from gaining actions, definitely very, very strong because it shortens their turn to 2. And, you know, since they're not getting as many action gain, it's harder for them to run away. I mean, you are only a move of 2, but you can boost yourself to constantly be in range to attack your opponents. That's very cool. So that's all of our gear cards. Once again, you would choose which of the 2 to put in your deck for all of these. So you pick either the Sword of Steel here or the Sword of Silver. You shuffle those 2 into your deck and put the other ones back in your box, as well as the same thing for defense and the same thing for schemes. But yeah, now we can move on to the actual deck here. Once again, I want to point out a little bit of attack, a bunch of versatile, a couple of scheme, and then Dandelion's card. No any cards. So I want to keep that in mind as we go through. So next here is a 0 attack for Geralt with 3 boost 2 copies, and this is Igni, which is that triangle symbol that we saw on his miniature there. And this is after combat, deal 2 damage to the opposing fighter and 1 damage to each other fighter adjacent to Geralt. Okay, so yeah, you don't care about combat damage. This is just, hey, I'm getting effect damage and potentially making you waste a good defense. Unless, of course, they cancel this card's effect. This is just a 0 with no text. Obviously, that would suck. Speaking of no text, here we have a 5 versatile with 4 boost 3 copies. And this is Damn, You're Ugly. Hey, I mean, fair. That is definitely an ugly monster, and he does not seem amused at all. And I like that we have 3 of those, which is, I mean, hey, versatile 5, love that for Geralt here. Next, we have a 3 versatile for Geralt with 2 copies, and 2 boost 3 copies, and this is Rend. During combat, you may boost this card. And hey, we have a boost of 4 there, so this could be a 7. I mean, hey, so far it seems like Geralt is quite scary for attacking and for getting attacked. I mean, I'm loving this deck so far. Next is a 4 versatile for Geralt with 2 boost 3 copies, and this is Disciplined Duelist. After combat, if the printed value of their opponent's card is, and then we have a couple of values here, so I'm guessing if it's a 1, 0, or above 4, it does nothing. This is if it's 2, you may draw 1 card. If it's 3, deal 1 damage to the opposing fighter, and 4, your opponent discards 1 card. I really like that this deck is very different depending on who you're going against, which I feel, once again, I have not played the games, but with him kind of hunting down monsters, every fight is going to be a little bit different. So I like that he changes depending on the fight. Next here is a 2 versatile for Geralt with 2 boost 2 copies. And this is Repose. After combat, choose 1. Deal 1 damage to an adjacent fighter, or Geralt swaps spaces with an adjacent fighter. Okay. I mean, hey, definitely nothing too flashy, but definitely good to have on the deck there. And then, okay, what is with all these names here? Next, we have a 2 versatile for Geralt with 2 boost 3 copies, and this is Yurden. Immediately, the opposing fighter cannot leave their space this turn. After combat, move Geralt up to 2 spaces. So, hey, if you're getting attacked from range, you can get yourself in nice and close to keep that ongoing effect going on your next turn. Next, moving into our schemes here for Geralt with 3 boost 2 copies. Always nice to have a big boost values there. This is Witcher Senses, so it looks like he's seeing what he's about to do there. Search your deck or discard pile for a gear card and add it to your hand. If you took it from your deck, shuffle this card back into your deck. Okay, very cool. So definitely a better card to play earlier on because you can search that deck and put this guy back in your deck. Very, very cool. And then so here we are at the Dandelion cards. So we have 3 copies of 2 different types of cards. Once again, I'm not guessing that Dandelion is going to be very useful in this deck. Maybe just as a meat shield. Maybe that's very thematic to the game that he's just a meat shield. But as long as, I mean, if these cards kind of suck, what's the point of having this guy around? It does look like we have some good boost value, so we can use up his cards. But before I am trashing on this guy, we have not even read his cards. Let's get into his cards here. 3 versatile for Dandelion, 3 boost, 3 copies, and this is Annoying Tune. After combat, move the opposing fighter up to 4 spaces. Okay, so potentially into Geralt or away from both of them. And then last here is 2 versatile for Dandelion with 2 boost, 3 copies, and this is Plot Twist. After combat, look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card for them to discard. Draw 1 card. Okay, so that's very nice, and I believe we saw Plot Twist in one of the other Witcher decks, but very cool. So once again, I don't think Dandelion is super useful, but I do like the Plot Twist cards. But hey, if you're not drawing them, then Dandelion seems kind of useless to me. But hey, let's try and match with him and see if he looks good. Before we move on to the next fighter, I did end up pre-ordering both sets, and if you know that, I did get an alternate mini here for The Witcher. If there's one thing I do remember is seeing the bath scene from one of the games, I believe the third one when my brother was playing it, or from the TV show. So pretty iconic for The Witcher here to be in the bathtub. A limited edition miniature here. And it looks like specifically for steel and silver. So we can crack this open. And I will say, obviously, I have seen this, a couple of pictures of this before. And I do have a couple of gripes. So here we go. We can kind of look at the details here. I do like all the details. I think they did a fantastic job with this miniature. but I don't think I'll ever use this. Potentially, like a friend could use it if he thinks it's funny enough. But what I don't like is it doesn't have one of the plastic bases, and it's about the same size, so it kind of doesn't feel like it's from the game. I wish there was a base that fit on the bottom of this, or there was a slightly like wider base that had a plastic thing. It's nice to have, but hey, this is going to be for guests, not so much for me. Let's move on to the next fighter. All right, last here we have Ciri and I will say, before we even go into it, I do have a little bit of a gripe. While I was getting this all set up, I saw her hero power then. I was expecting an extra rules card, but there wasn't one. You have to read the rule book to understand this, which kind of sucks because I usually don't keep the rule books whenever I go like traveling. So if someone ended up playing this game without me and I wasn't there to explain how to use this deck, you wouldn't understand. I said I try to go as much spoiler free as I could, and it is not what I expected the effect to be. We'll get into that in just a moment, but definitely very interesting. And the other thing is that I wish they would have like had another counter, like not like 2 health dials and 1 little dial counter. Maybe I'll do a custom one eventually. But hey, Ciri, what the heck? Maybe I'll have to print off an extra rules card and a special health dial for that. But hey, come on, Unmatched. What are we doing here? But yeah, let's go right into the miniature here. We can see Ciri. One thing it did say in the rulebook is that she has the power of source, or is a source. So she has these little source icons you'll see in the deck, and she's often overwhelmed by the power. They stuck that lore in the rulebook, so maybe we'll see that she's a little uncontrollable. But next here we also have
horse with spike on head,
a gorgeous unicorn who I will be referring to as unicorn going forward, so I don't have to keep editing in that soundbite. But next here we can also check out their health dials, and see this one, it is blue on the back, so I'm gonna give them a little more props. But why couldn't you just have this like swish part here with that light blue so that they match front to back? That's my only thing, is that they just don't look like the back was the correct back. Like that looks like a Star Wars, like a Namor or something on the back, because it's not quite the right blue color. But yeah, we can move right into the deck here, and I can kind of explain what an extra rule card for this deck would say. So basically, there's these little source icons we will see on the cards themselves, and then every time you play a card or want an effect like this, you do have to count all of these little icons in your discard pile, and you do whatever effect either is the same or higher from your discard. So let's just say for this effect here, I guess we can, before we go into that, let's read the card first. This is Ciri, a melee fighter with 15 health, and then
Jasmine
with a melee fighter with 7 health, and they both have a move of 2. And her ability here is Uncontainable Power. And so this is 7 source. Effects on Ciri's cards cannot be canceled. So what that 7 means is that as long as your discard pile has at least 7 of these icons, this is always in play. And if a card that we will see there has multiple effects, you only do the effect of the highest of the 2. So you don't just get both effects, or you don't just get the one that you choose. You have to do the highest, and if you can't reach either one, you don't get any ability there. So yeah, so potentially a Sherlock ability here, or a Winter Soldier ability, but you have to do it later in the game once you've already had 7 of these cards in your discard pile. So let's go right into the deck here. We can check out the card back. You know, simple enough. I said it looks a little fan made, but I like it more than the Any Christmas back card back. Okay, so let's get right into it. So this one does not have that source icon. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, so these little source icons. So as the game goes on, like let's say it has 1 source. So as long as you have 1 of these little icons in your discard pile, you get this effect. If you have at least 5, you get the 5 effect, but not the 1 effect. And if you have 0, like this is one of your first cards, you will not get any of the effects. But as I said, we can kind of talk more as we go. So starting here for Ciri, this is a 2 attack with 3 boost 3 copies, and this is Channel the Source. During combat, you may discard any number of source cards from your hand, add +2 this card's value for each source card you discarded. So, okay, I do remember seeing this card before I saw the set, and I was like, what? Like, obviously it's good to be able to boost up this card. I was kind of thinking that most of the cards would have the source icons on there, but not only is this good to get a good amount of attack, but also you get to boost up how much source you have. So you could play this one, get some more source into your discard pile, and then play a card that would need that source, or even, you know, getting yourself up so that your card effects cannot be canceled. So a very, very cool card. I like that we have 3 of those. Next here is a source card for Ciri with 2 attack, 2 boost 3 copies. And this is Lion Cub of Sintra. During combat, if you have at least one source in your discard pile, this card's value is 4 instead. If you have at least 5, this card's value is 7 instead. So once again, you do not get to choose, it's going to be 7. So very, very cool. Once again, as the deck goes on, we'll see how much source exactly is in this deck, but I feel like it's gonna be a little annoying to have to count your deck every time, like unless you have like a counter on the side or something. So definitely another dial would be very, very useful, or I guess you could in your discard pile kind of like lay them like this so you could easily count how many they are. But it seems like there might be quite a bit of counting as this game goes on. I do like that you don't use them up, so as long as you remember what you used to be at, you can always just keep adding to that number. But yeah, we can keep moving on here. That's all of our attack cards. Next, moving into our 4 versatile cards for Ciri. This is 1 boost 3 copies, and this is Blink. After combat, move Ciri up to 3 spaces. She may move through opposing fighters. Okay, and this is not a source card. Next here is a 3 versatile with source for Ciri with 2 boost 3 copies, and this is Pushed to the Brink. After combat, if you have at least 2 source in your discard pile, deal 1 damage to the opposing fighter. If you have at least 7 or higher, deal 2 damage to an opposing fighter within 3 spaces of Ciri. Okay, cool. I like that it goes from just a small amount of damage right next to you to a little bit more damage with a wider range. Definitely very cool there, and we have 3 of those. Next here, and it does look like, what I find is interesting is it looks like, at least so far, the interaction, like this one doesn't interact with source, and it also doesn't give you source. So maybe it's a thing is as she uses her powers, she also becomes more powerful. Maybe that's thematic in the game there. Next here is a 2 versatile for Ciri with source with 2 boost 2 copies, and this is Lady of Space and Time. After combat, if you have at least 3 source in your discard pile, return a card from your discard pile to the top of your deck. Okay, so potentially 1 with source or without. And then if you have at least 8 in your discard pile, return a card from your discard pile to your hand and draw 1 card. Okay, definitely very cool. Let's keep on going. Next here is a 2 versatile for Ciri with source and 2 boost 3 copies. And this is Zeriel, hopefully. During combat, if you have at least 3 source, this card's value is 4 instead. If you have at least 5, this card's value is 4 instead, and your opponent discards 1 random card. Okay, so once again, unlike the T-Rex where you're kind of waiting out the game, this is a character that you want to kill fast so she can't get strong enough. So definitely not going to do very well against fast fighters, but she will do very, very well against other slow fighters here. Moving into a scheme for Ciri with source, 2 boost 2 copies, and this is Child of the Elder Blood. This is, if you have at least 4 source, deal 1 damage to each other fighter in Ciri's zone. If you have at least 9, deal 3 damage to each other fighter in Ciri's zone. Okay, so that could be very, very strong. And we saw, let me quickly pull the map back out from there. One thing we did see is that there are the 4 zones. Where did I see that? There it is. Yeah, so this one has, these both have 4 zones. So all of these light blue, all of these gray, all of these purple, and all these kind of dark purpley indigo-ish. And then the same thing with this one, but with the orange. I mean, that's a very widespread range to be able to attack. Or not to attack, but to deal that 3 damage. So definitely very, very strong. I really like that. Next here for the unicorn, we have a 4 attack, 4 boost, 3 copies, and this is Bane of the E&L. We saw E&L before. Once again, I don't know the source material to tell you what that is. But after combat, move the unicorn up to 4 spaces. He may move through opposing fighters, then deal 1 damage to an opposing fighter he moved through. Okay, so you're only choosing 1. He's not dealing damage to each one, but just one of those guys is going to get speared with blood. That is definitely a gruesome sight with all that blood on a white unicorn. Next here for the unicorn, we have a 3 versatile with 3 boost 3 copies, and this is Searching Strike. After combat, if you won the combat, you may search your deck for a source card, reveal it, and add it to your hand. Okay, I like that. We got a good supporter here, and so far, I mean, that's the only cards that our unicorn bestie can be playing. But hey, we do have a couple of any cards here. So next for any, we have 3 defense, 1 boost 3 copies, and this is Parry. Immediately cancel all effects on your opponent's card. Okay, so a feint, but +1 value there and a defense card. And then lastly here we finally have our ongoing effect, and hey, look how beautiful that art is. Very majestic. This is a scheme for any with 2 boost 2 copies, and this is Unicorn Ally. Ciri recovers 2 health. Hey, if it's your ally, why isn't he getting some health, man? Come on. Ongoing, after each combat your fighter is in, draw 1 card. Discard this card at the end of your turn if you have 5 or more cards in your hand. Okay, so out of all the ongoing effects, I think this might be my favorite. I like that you're getting some health value here, so definitely a good value just by itself. But also the fact that you get to draw a card after each combat you're in. So potentially, I guess there is going to be times that it doesn't look at, it is at the end of your turn. So as long as you're playing enough cards, you can get yourself like below 5. 5 seems like a pretty easy number to stay under, at least, especially because you can boost with your maneuver to stay underneath. But very cool. And the fact that she is going to be trying to get a lot of source into her discard pile, boosting her maneuver a lot might be super beneficial because it'll keep you drawing, like basically gaining that T-Rex effect, but also getting a lot of source in your discard pile. Okay, very cool. I think right at the end there, she became my favorite fighter from the set. Okay, let's see how the box works. Okay, so this last thing I like to do in all my unboxing videos is show off how nice these inserts are from the Restoration games. Everything fits in here just perfectly, so if you've already owned an unmatched game, you already know this, but this is for people who this might be their first set. Maybe Witcher got you into the game. Hey guys, there are so many sets. We have so many fighters to choose from. We're glad to have you in the community here. So starting with the Ancient Leshen here, we can stick him in his little spot there, and then underneath where his cards would go, his health dial fits, and then on the side here, you will put both of his wolf tokens, and then lastly his cards. And everything fits in there just perfectly, so even though there's a little bit of shake with the cards, the miniature and the tokens and everything is going to be very safe if you end up taking this like on a bus ride or to your friend's house or anything. Everything will be nice and safe. They do a very, very good job of keeping everything packed nicely. And then we can see here with Ciri's fighters and everything, we can fit all of her tokens in here as well. And then also slapping our cards in there. And then lastly, Geralt. We can put both of his health dials in the bottom there, as well as his sidekick token and his cards. Where'd his hero card go? There we go. And then lastly, his miniature. And you can see everything fits in there. Very nice. All the jostling around you might have in a backpack or such is going to keep all of these fighters super, super safe. And then on the back here, it also has all of their names, just in case you forget which spot each character goes into. And then lastly, on top of that, the board fits just perfectly on the top there to keep everybody kind of hunkered down there. And you can also put your rule book as well as these set specific rules there. And then lastly, slide on the top of the box, and everything is going to be nice and safe and easy to transport around. Hey, I mean, even their box inserts are unmatched. And then the leaflet, you can just keep this by your bedside table to just admire all of the work that Restoration Games has put into this. And now, if you stuck around this long, I do have a little bit of a fun thing for you guys specifically. My true friends here that are staying till the end of the video. I did pre-order the set, so I did get the foil cards here we can admire together. The first one here, Primal Slam, having all that foil just be under the roots there. And then next for Channel the Source, we have the lightning with the foil. Very, very cool. I wish it was just slightly thicker, but still very cool. And then lastly, okay, these two can go. This one is my favorite. Wow. This is probably my favorite foil that they've ever released. This is fantastic, guys. Okay, it's official. Geralt's my favorite. This foil is fantastic. And if you know me, I do give these foils away. I think this might be the only foil I hang on to. Usually I don't give a crap about the foils because I'm going to play with them. I'm going to use them. I'd rather give it to someone who's going to cherish it, but I might cherish this one. So yeah, so I won't be giving these away in this video, but in an upcoming video, I will be giving them away. So keep watch out for that. And I got to go. My toast is burning, and I'll let these ones burn. I got to save this one.